الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Surely all praises belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for He is the creator, sustainer and controller of all that happens in the universe. And we invoke His peace and blessings upon His noble messenger, His family, His companions, and all those who follow them in righteousness until the end of time. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I must apologize for showing up so late. I was actually at another program in Brampton. And they ended up starting a bit late. This is usually my fear of having back-to-back programs, because if the first one goes late, then you know what happens. But nevertheless, I am here. We have a shorter session, of course, but half a loaf is better than none. You guys know that? Half a loaf is better than none. When we were little kids that we were learning to write, this was one of the proverbs we had to write. And the first time I wrote half a loaf is better than one. And the teacher said, you better correct this before you get a flogging today. Brothers and sisters, we will continue with the seerah. Now the Prophet ﷺ has finally migrated. He is in Medina. He did a couple of things. One of the first things he did was to build his masjid, that we know as Masjid Nabawiah, and about which the Prophet ﷺ said, Salatun fi masjidi hada khayrun wa afdalu min alfi salatin fima siwahu illa al-masjid al-haram. A prayer in this masjid of mine is 1,000 times better than anywhere else except al-masjid al-haram in Mecca. The prayer at the Kaaba is 100 times better than in Medina. So it's 100,000 times better than everywhere else, 100 times better than Medina, and a prayer in Medina is 1,000 times better than everywhere else. And of course in Al-Aqsa, the Masjid Al-Aqsa, it's 500 times better. In addition to that, the Prophet ﷺ also forged a bond of brotherhood among the Ansar and the Muhajirin. We talked about that in quite some details. And in addition to that, he also made a treaty with all the citizens and inhabitants of Medina, so that they could work together despite their different beliefs and their different religions, Muslim, Mushrik and Yahudi. Despite the different religions, he made this pact and this treaty with everybody, so that Medina as a society could prosper. The society can become better. And this is a powerful message for us, brothers and sisters, especially given the fact that we live here in this country and in this city. That yes, we may share different or have different religions than other people, but that does not create a barrier from us working with other people for what is good for all of us, the whole of society. So these are things that the Prophet ﷺ certainly did in Medina, and so life started to organize itself. The Muhajirin are getting settled, and they're beginning to become part of the society in Medina. But remember, Quraysh were not idle. They did not give up. They were still continuing in their efforts to learn about what was happening in Medina. They wanted to know what the Muslims were up to. And in wanting to know this, of course, their objective was to find weaknesses for the Muslims and exploit those weaknesses. So they had allies from the Jews themselves. Remember the three major Jewish tribes in Medina: Banu Nadir, Banu Qaynuqa, and Banu Qurayza. In addition to that, Quraysh also had contacts with people known in Medina as hypocrites, munafiqun. And by the way, Al-Hafidh ibn Kathir rahimahullah in his tafsir, he said that while the Prophet ﷺ lived in Mecca after the Risala, there were only two types of people: Muslim, Kafir, or Mushrik. The third group surfaced in Medina, the Munafiqun. They had presence in Medina. And these were people who, of course, openly professed Islam, but secretly hid in their hearts disbelief. And so, they considered it in their best interest to also undermine the Muslim community in Medina. So they would give advice to Quraysh and support and share some of the news about the Muslims in Medina. And so the Prophet ﷺ, once he migrated, did not just forget about Mecca and Quraysh. He knew that they wouldn't give up. So he himself organized these small groups of the Sahaba, and he would send them out on missions. They're considered military expeditions. Not to engage in war or guerrilla warfare or anything like that, but simply to gather information about Quraysh and what they were doing. And so the first year of the Hijrah rolled around like that. Fasting was not made compulsory yet on the Muslims. So for that first Ramadan, there was no fasting that was compulsory in Ramadan. And then the second year rolled around. And in the second year, in the month of Sha'ban, some scholars say, roughly about a year and a half after the migration, a major event would take place. And that is, some people may not consider it major, but it was major. That was the changing of the Qibla. I am sure you know, brothers and sisters, that initially the Qibla was towards where? The White House? The White House? No. Where was the first Qibla? Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. So the Muslims used to pray facing north, because Medina and Mecca are south of Al-Aqsa. So for about a year and a half, right? Remember from the Isra Mi'raj in Mecca, when Salah was made compulsory, they faced Al-Aqsa. Then the migration happened, and for another year and a half, they faced Al-Aqsa. Roughly about 3 years in total. And then, in the middle of the second year of the Hijrah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent revelation to the Prophet alayhi salam, ordering him and the Muslims to change the Qibla. Now, scholars say that there were two objectives, or two things that happened as a result of the changing of the Qibla. And this is what makes it a significant event. It may not seem like a big deal, you're just changing the direction of the prayer, but it's significant because, number one, the changing of the Qibla actually served to expose the reality of the Munafiqeen and the Jews in Medina. Because once the Qibla was changed from Al-Aqsa to the Kaaba, the Jews, and following in their footsteps the Munafiqun, the hypocrites, they questioned why. They were upset over this. How come? What's the purpose? What's going on? What is Muhammad doing? He doesn't know, which direction he's facing in prayer. One time this way, one time another way. So they use this to try to create confusion among the Muslims, but at the same time it actually exposed their reality. That the fact that they were harboring ill feelings for the Muslims, in as much as the Prophet embraced them as citizens of Medina and is willing to work with them for the betterment of Medina, this exposed some of the inner workings of their minds and their hearts. And this is why Allah says about this incident in the Quran, at the very beginning of the second juz, سيقول السفهاء من الناس ما ولاهم عن قبلتهم التي كانوا عليها. The fools among the people will say, this is how Allah refers to them in this ayah, because they now expose their reality. The fools among the people will say, what is it that caused them to change the Qibla? Allah answers the question in the revelation by saying, قُلْ لِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ. Say to Allah belongs the east and the west. And the message in this statement is that we follow Allah's orders, plain and simple. If Allah says face Al-Aqsa, we face Al-Aqsa. If He says change it guys to Mecca, we change it to Mecca. If He says change it again, we change it again. That's the bottom line. This is the Muslim. This is the mindset of the Muslim. We follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it does not indicate flip-flopping or that you don't know what you're doing. Plain and simple. We submit and surrender to Allah and His commands. So when Allah says, لِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ, to Allah belongs the east and the west. So the issue here is not about which direction you're facing. That's not an issue at all. The real issue is obedience to Allah's commands. Because east or west, they all belong to Allah. By the way, brothers and sisters, I want to tickle your brains a little bit. And our brother is doing this here. I want you, when you go home, you can check this out. As I said, Al-Aqsa is north of Saudi Arabia. Alright, Palestine is north of Saudi Arabia. You guys agree with me? Have you looked at a map recently? Okay. So, in Mecca or Medina, to face Al-Aqsa, you have to face what direction? North. Very good, north. Alright, and the word north we should be familiar with. Because we the north. You guys know the Raptors won tonight? Or you're not into basketball? I'm not into it really, but my kids are, so I hear the score. So we face north. Time. When the Qibla was changed, Medina is north of Mecca. Medina is north of Mecca. 400 kilometers north of Mecca. So in Medina they were facing north, Al-Aqsa. Now when Allah changed the Qibla, what direction were they facing? What is the opposite direction? South. Exactly. South. So what are the two directions that are involved in the Qibla and the changing of the Qibla? What are the two directions? What are the two directions? North and south. Is that so? You agree with me? North, Al-Aqsa, south, Mecca. So how does Allah say to Allah belongs the east and the west? What does east and west have to do with the Qibla? Have you ever thought about that? Al-Aqsa is north. Then they changed to the Kaaba south. How come Allah says east and west? There is an author. This is an American guy who embraced Islam, by the way. Dr. Lawrence Brown. I had the good fortune to meet him in Medina a few years back when I went for Hajj. And he wrote a book called Guided. G-O-D-E-D. Guided, yani guided. And or misguided, yani misguided. So you can, maybe Google his name, Dr. Lawrence Brown. I think his name is spelled L-A-U, not L-A-W. Lawrence Brown. Guided and misguided. Really nice books. He made a very interesting comment in his book about this east and west business in the Quran. And I want to share that with you. In the entire Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never mentioned north and south. It's always east and west. Even when the Qibla had to do with north and south, Allah did not mention north. He said east and west. Anyone wants to guess why? Alright, let me help you along. We don't have much time.
I think the sun is going from the east to the west, that was our...
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with the sun. Here is the thing, guys. If you start to travel north, what would eventually happen? You go north. So you head up from Ontario, southern Ontario, and you go north, right? Take it 400 and keep going north. Sudbury and these places. What would happen eventually? Where would you you end up? The North Pole maybe? Okay, you keep going. What would happen? What would happen? Eventually you go what direction? South. So north, if you start to go south, what will happen?
You go to north.
You will go through the South Pole and then come around, you start headed north. So these two directions, north and south, are really finite directions. But if you started to go east, what will happen? Would you ever start going west? You never. You will fly in a complete circle around the globe and you're still going east. And if you go west, same thing. You never ever stop going west. So these two directions, east and west, are infinite directions. And this Dr. Lawrence Brown in his book, I forgot which one, Guarded or Misguided, he says perhaps this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never makes reference to the east and to the north and south. Because these are finite directions. And Allah and everything about His is infinite. He says when the people questioned how come the Qibla was changed, Allah says, قُلْ لِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ. To Allah belongs the east and west. People weren't facing east and west. They were north and then south. So in the changing of the Qibla, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposed to the Muslims in Medina the reality of the Munafiqeen and the Jews. Because they weren't happy. The other thing that is significant about the change of the Qibla, remember this happened like middle of the second year now of the Hijrah. By turning the direction from Al-Aqsa to Mecca, in a way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was focusing the attention of the Muslims to Mecca. And in a way, the scholars say, it is as if He was telling them, look, you have to liberate Mecca someday. Because the place you face in your prayer is under the control of whom? The disbelievers. You cannot let that go forever. At some point in time, you'll have to change that. So by changing the Qibla, He was refocusing the attention and the energies of the Muslims. Kind of telling them, look guys, one day you will have to liberate Mecca. And it happened 8 years after the migration. So this is a significant event that occurred in the second year of the Hijrah. Let me back up a little bit. When the new year began, the second year of the Hijrah began, Muharram is the first month. The Prophet ﷺ found the Jews fasting on the day of Muharram. Remember, the year before, he was not in Medina in Muharram. He was still in Mecca. He only arrived in Medina in the Rabi' al-Awwal of that year. So he didn't know what happened. But in the new year, the second year, he is there for Muharram, Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, and he found the Jews fasting on this day. So he asked them why. And they told him that this is a great day. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Bani Israel with him from Fir'aun. You know the story of the parting of the sea. That's what they were talking about. Allah saved them on the day of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. And they said to the Prophet alayhi salam that Musa alayhi salam, out of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he fasted on this day. So they follow his example. And the Prophet alayhi salam said to them, نَحْنُ أَوْلَى بِمُوسَى مِنْكُمْ. We have a stronger bond with Musa than you people. What does this mean? The scholars say, it means that as Muslims, we have not met Prophet Musa alayhi salam, yet we believe in everything he came with. And we love him and we revere him and we respect him. Yet Bani Israel, especially in the life of Musa alayhi salam, there were groups among them who openly disobeyed him and deviated. Within days or a few weeks of crossing that sea, when Allah saved them from Fir'aun, they made a statue of a cow and worshipped it. Imagine that. With your own eyes you saw this miracle. You walked between the water. It's not just you looked at it only. You walked between it. So you knew it was no illusion. And yet within days or weeks later, they took all their jewelry and they made a calf, like a cow, a statue of a cow, and they're worshipping that. So the Prophet ﷺ ordered the Muslims to fast on that day of Ashura. He made it compulsory. He said to them, if you have eaten, do not eat anymore for the day. And if you have not eaten yet, do not eat for the day. Fast. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar mentions in his commentary that this was before fasting in Ramadan was made compulsory. And by the way, Ramadan is exactly 1 month away. You know that? Inshallah, it should start on the 7th of June. And what date is today? 7th of May. So 1 month. In the second year of the Hijrah, just after the Qibla was changed, Allah would make fasting compulsory on the Muslims. So in Muharram, 7 months before, 8 months before, fasting is not compulsory. So the Prophet ordered the Muslims to fast. But then when Ramadan, the month of Ramadan came and Allah made fasting compulsory, when the following year rolled around, the Prophet ﷺ did not order the Muslims to fast on Muharram anymore. He said whoever wishes can fast and whoever wishes can skip it. So only for that 1 year it was made compulsory on them, because fasting in Ramadan was not made compulsory. And then of course another significant event is the fact that fasting was made compulsory in the month of Ramadan in the second year of the Hijrah. Perhaps some of the time, in our next session we can talk about Ramadan and so on. But another extremely significant event that would happen in Ramadan, but it actually started before Ramadan, was the Battle of Badr. Now, a couple of months before Ramadan, in Jumad al-Ula or so, the Prophet ﷺ, remember he used to send out these scout groups, right? Small groups of Sahaba, to gather information about Quraysh and what they were up to. Well, he got news that a caravan full of wealth from Quraysh was headed to Syria for trading. And the Prophet ﷺ gathered about 200 Sahaba and says, look, let's go capture this caravan to replace the wealth Quraysh seized from us in Mecca. Now when the Muslims migrated from Mecca, they had to leave their homes. You know what happened to the homes? They did not become vacation property. No. The homes were confiscated by Quraysh. They took it over. And every other wealth, because a lot of the Muslims could not take everything with them. They had to just take maybe the clothes that they were wearing and maybe a small bundle of clothing and leave. Most of them left most of their belongings in Mecca. Quraysh seized all of it, took it over. So the Prophet ﷺ told the Sahaba, let's go capture this caravan and replace this wealth that these guys seized from us. But Abu Sufyan, one of the head people in the caravan of Quraysh, managed to evade the Muslims. So they missed them and they continued on their way to Syria. Of course, Abu Sufyan was a smart man, and he realized, says, look, if they attempted to capture the caravan on the way to Syria, chances are they will attempt to do the same on the way back. Smart. But anyways, they escaped and they continued on their journey to Syria. And so the Muslims came back to Medina. They were not able to capture the caravan. And then the Prophet ﷺ, after a couple of months, got news that the caravan is headed back. So this time, he said to the Sahaba, okay guys, let's make the second attempt to capture this caravan. So he left Medina with somewhere between 300 and 317 of the companions. Now he did not make it compulsory on the companions to go out with him, because he had no intentions of fighting battle, period. His idea was to simply capture this caravan, and you don't need a whole army to do that, right? So he did not make it compulsory, and that is why the Sahaba who did not take part in Badr, there is no blame on them, period. Of course, those who ended up taking part in Badr, they have high status. But no one was blamed for staying behind, because the Prophet ﷺ did not make it wajib on them. But all the other subsequent battles that took place, it was wajib on anyone who was capable to go out with the Prophet ﷺ. You could not stay behind. So he left Medina with roughly 300, a little more than 300 men. And again, their objective was to capture this caravan. But remember, Abu Sufyan is smart. And even though they escaped while going to Syria, he also was aware that the Muslims may make another attempt to capture it on the way back. And by the way, it is said that, you know how he found out that the Muslims were on the lookout? They stopped at a little village, a caravan of Quraysh. And Abu Sufyan saw some camel dung. And he went and he searched in the dung, and he found date seeds. You know the seed of the dates? You guys have eaten dates? It comes with seeds. He saw the seeds. And he said, you know what? This has to be people from Medina. Because Medina is known for dates. Even the camels eat the dates. So what he did two things, Abu Sufyan. He wrote a letter and sent it to Quraysh in Makkah, asking them to send an armed group to protect their wealth, their caravan. But he didn't sit back and wait for the army to arrive. He took steps to change direction to evade the Muslims as well. So when Quraysh got this information, and you know the man who brought the information, what he did when he arrived in Makkah, the man, tore up his clothing. And he cut off the ears and the nose of the camel, turned his saddle upside down. All of this was to impress upon Quraysh the serious nature of the news he brought for them, and that is, their caravan is under attack. It wasn't really under attack, literally, but you get the idea, that the Muslims were attempting to seize it. So Quraysh got together, and all the main people, Abu Jahl and so on, Umayyah ibn Khalaf and so on, all these head of Quraysh, these disbelievers, they got together, and they were very willing to arm themselves and go out and protect their wealth. They left Mecca with 1,300 people, 1,300 well armed. They meant business. And by the way, when the Muslims left Medina, remember they had no idea they were going to fight war. So they did not leave equipped for war. The historians tell us that when the Muslims left, they had about 70 camels and only 2 horses for 300 men. 70 camels, 2 horses, 72 animals, and you have 300 people. How are you going to ride these animals? You guys have any ideas? Yes?
2 persons on each camel and 3 on each horse.
2 persons on each camel. You want to kill the animal? They used to take turns. 1 person ride, the rest would walk. Right? So 3 people to a camel, let's say. 2 will walk, the other one rides for a while, then they switch positions. That's how they used to do it. But that's how they did it. But when Quraysh came, when they left Mecca, remember, 1,300 now, compared to 300, and they were well armed. They had 100 men on horses. The Muslims had only 2 men on horses, like 2 horses. And they had lots of camels, because their plan was to use the camels as food. You slaughter a bunch of camels every day, either 9 or 10 camels they would slaughter and cook it up. They also left with good arms because they intended to protect their wealth. And if the opportunity offered itself to just decimate the Muslims. The Muslims, on the other hand, weren't well armed either, because it was just a caravan that they were supposed to capture. Now when Abu Sufyan changed direction, and he was able to escape the Muslims, he sent another message to Mecca. So by the time they're preparing their army, right, it doesn't happen overnight, it took some time, a couple of days at least or so. This other message came to inform them that, guys, the caravan is safe, there's no need to send out the army. So Quraysh could have easily stayed in Mecca, but they didn't. People like Abu Jahl said, no, why should we stay behind? We have a golden opportunity to decimate the Muslims. Let's take it to them guys. So these guys kept prodding the others. In the end, 300 fighters among Quraysh from a tribe called Bani Zahra decided they will not go out. The caravan is safe, there's no need to go out, no need to fight. And this is interesting, because they were tribes who did not embrace Islam, but they were still sort of people who had good common sense, and they were reasonably fair and just. So they saw, waging war against the Muslims, even after they failed in capturing the caravan, it was useless, it was not fair, it was not just. So Banu Zahra, the fighters from Banu Zahra says, no, we're not going out guys, that's it, we have no quarrel with the Muslims. So now, out of 1,300, only 1,000 were left. The 1,000 went out, intending to engage the Muslims in war. They're well armed. Now remember, as the Prophet ﷺ left Medina, and by the way, when he left Medina, his daughter Ruqayya radiyallahu anha was ill. Anybody knows who was her husband at the time? Who was the husband of Ruqayya radiyallahu anhu, the Prophet's daughter?